Hi, everybody, and welcome to AUDL Voices. I'm Christina Lee Chung. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of the AUDL and also the majority owner of the Philadelphia Phoenix franchise. I'm super excited to be moderating and hosting this panel tonight and highlighting and talking about women in pro sports. Some of our objectives tonight, I'm really excited to showcase these four women on this panel, kind of how they got there, who they are, how they're blazing trails as women in the sports industry. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to use our platform to support a mission of, I think, forwarding women in sports and the cause that we have here and the opportunity we have to build something new and good. The AUDL's, a startup professional sports league. All of us have an opportunity to create the foundation of what Pro Ultimate's going to look like in the future. And I'm really thrilled that we have so many outstanding women involved in the building of this, in the creation of this. One of the things that we would like to do through this is to explore better ways to incorporate women into sports. All four women have had significant experience in sports at different levels. They're going to share their experiences, and I just think that being able to have this conversation and getting the four women in a room together will really help to forward the cause and make sports a more inclusive and comfortable environment for women that supports growth and career development. All right, so I want to first now take a second to introduce each person on our panel. First up is Alexis Abelove. Alexis is the Director of Marketing and Operations for the Chicago Union. She is a recent MBA grad, and I've had many interactions with her over the past year. And she is just exceptional at everything she does. Every single time we talk to her about a topic, we think she's the expert in that. And so we're really excited to welcome you tonight, Alexis.
Thank you, Christina. I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Do you want to tell them anything about what you do with the Chicago Union, how you got here?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like you said, Director of Operations and Marketing, helped with the day-to-day team operations, a lot of the admin stuff, and then obviously the marketing side, digital marketing, social media, group outreach, kind of anything that involves our team. I'm kind of the one on top of it. How I got here, I have no ultimate experience, so we can kind of touch on that later. But I came into the team in November of 2020.
Great, thanks, Alexis. I think next up on our panelists is Dr. Meghan Bishop. Dr. Bishop, are you there?
I'm here.
There you are.
Hey, Christina.
Hi, Dr. Meghan Bishop is the head team physician for the New York Empire franchise. She is a sports surgeon, and she is also the newly minted chair of the AUDL Medical Research Committee. So I've had the great fortune of being able to work with her on some academic medical items, and I just wanted to let Meghan take the floor and tell us a little about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Everybody, thanks for having me here tonight. Again, I'm Meghan Bishop, sports medicine surgeon, so I take care of, mostly shoulders, knees, elbows, any kind of sports-related injury, essentially. I did my training. I started in DC for medical school and then did my residency in Philly at Jefferson and then my fellowship in sports medicine surgery in New York at Hospital for Special Surgery. I now work for Rothman Orthopedics based in New York and have been there for the last 4 to 5 years. I love sports coverage. In my fellowship, I got to work with the New York Knicks, and I have done a lot of D1 coverage of multiple sports. I'm a big runner as well, so I have a lot of experience covering marathons like New York City Marathon, as well as Philadelphia Marathon. But this is my first time covering Ultimate, so I'm in my second season covering the New York Empire, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Great, thanks, Meghan. Next up, we have the very famous Kaela Helton, who is the co-head coach of the San Diego Growlers this year. Kaela is our reigning ultimate superstar on this panel. She is really so decorated, I can't even go into it. I'm just going to let Kaela tell you about herself.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, I've been playing Ultimate for longer than I care to admit. I've also been coaching for a long time. I've had quite a lot of different experiences within the AUDL, one of which being practice player for 2 different franchises. So now that I'm the co-head coach of the Growlers, I kind of bring that player perspective. I've played on multiple worlds teams, both for mixed and women's, and then I'm currently a player in the WUL, which is one of the women's professional leagues.
Great, Kaela. Thanks for being here. I think we're going to move on now to Amanda Myhrberg. Sorry, Amanda. Amanda is a co-owner of the Tampa Bay Cannons, and she is also a longtime mental performance coach. Another tidbit about Amanda is that she's one of our newest members on the AUDL Inclusion Initiative, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with her in that capacity as well. Amanda, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. This is really exciting just to have all these women together talking about what we do a little bit behind the scenes on the field. But what I do as a mental performance coach, I've been with the Cannons since 2018, help the athletes, through ups and downs, and from the mental side, dealing with nerves, dealing with performance anxieties, and just building confidence overall. And it's just been a really fun experience working as a mental performance coach, not just with Ultimate players, but in my day-to-day work with other athletes. I specialize with youth athletes and high school athletes, so it's really fun to see them grow in sport through the mental side. But thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Amanda. Alrighty, so for our audience today, we are on Facebook Live and on YouTube. For you guys who have the chat function, please feel free to throw any questions that you have for any of our panelists, or individually or as a group, because we'll be more than happy to answer them later on in the piece, in the segment. But let's just move on into some of the questions and try and get some good discussion going on here. So the first question I'm going to ask is going to be for Alexis. So Alexis, you are a recent graduate, just got your MBA. You have had a lot of experience in soccer, and because you've been in sports for a while, you are obviously a woman and have been in the field for quite some time. What has it been like building a career in sports, and then what's it been like in particular with the AUDL in the year that you've been working with us?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely been challenging in the beginning. I would say, I was able to work with my university's football team as a strength conditioning intern, kind of being one of the only females in the room. And that was definitely a little intimidating. But throughout the years, I've definitely grown a lot of confidence. And as long as you have confidence when you walk in the room and you kind of exuberate that confidence, I think people really, truly see that you know what you're talking about and kind of have a little bit more respect for you. So kind of in the sports industry, when you bring your voice to the table, it's super important to be strong and confident with what you're sharing, because you have an opinion and it really matters, and you wouldn't be in the role you're in if people didn't trust you. But coming to the AUDL, it was great, honestly. A new sport, kind of being a part of that growth. I absolutely love it. It's a challenge for sure, because a lot of people don't know about the sport yet, but it's definitely up and coming. But kind of being a part of that growth and sharing and, being ecstatic about all the great things that are upcoming has definitely been exciting to be a part of the sports industry.
Meghan, I'm curious about your perspective on this as well. I know that, we've spoken a lot on the medical side, and I know that you work with some of the other physicians, head team physicians for the league, and you yourself have been a high performance athlete. So I'm curious, from your perspective as a physician who is also an athlete herself, who cares for athletes of all, I think, from all walks, what's it been like, through your whole career? And what's it been like pivoting to the AUDL?
So probably a lot of people don't know my own personal background, but just to say that a little bit more, I was a collegiate runner, and I am still somewhat a marathon runner and a long distance runner. I ran in the Olympic trials in 2020 in the marathon. So I definitely have the mentality of an athlete, which helps a lot in taking care of my players and my patients, just because, I understand you want to stay out there kind of at all costs. And, there's an important part of being a team physician is kind of knowing when you've got to take a player off the field and when you can allow them to keep going. So kind of being able to toe that line is an important thing. And I think having that personal experience myself really helps, kind of better equips me to be a better team doctor. In terms of the AUDL, this is my second season with the team. When I started, I was similar to Alexis. Honestly, I had no experience in ultimate. My college team, actually, I think my college had a pretty good ultimate team, but I never really had any experience playing myself. So I really was learning the rules of the game first, and it's very impressive, honestly. It's very physical. All the players are very good athletes, so I was very impressed with the competitiveness of the games and essentially the level of athleticism it required as well. So I think just orienting myself initially with the game. And another thing that's kind of unique about taking care of the AUDL players in league is while this is a professional league, this is a second job for pretty much everybody else. So in terms of, keeping athletes healthy, and the mentality they take to playing the game is just a little bit different than some of the other, say taking care of the Knicks or something like that I've done in the past. A lot of these players want to kind of stay out at all costs and keep playing through injury because, this is something they're choosing to do this. They love to do this. Understanding that kind of plays into how, I manage and can take care of the players on the team.
So you would say the most challenging aspect of working within the AUDL is just the difference in perspective of our athletes, I guess, career as a player, kind of, and why they're doing it, and kind of the structures from the medical structure from which they are used to coming from.
Correct. Yeah, I think so. I mean, these players don't have 12 hours a day to spend on conditioning and to spend on rehab and things like that. People are working full-time jobs and fitting it in when they can, and kind of burning it at both ends throughout the season. So we have a lot of help from our performance coaches and our athletic trainers that kind of are there on the practice level, to making sure, the athletes aren't getting too much load and kind of overdoing it. So I think, it's just a different perspective than taking care of other professional athletes that really just have this as their full-time job. But that being said, I mean, it's a very competitive and athletic sport, and it's very high demanding. So it's a balance that has to be kind of finely walked. I'm sure you guys who've played it before know that.
So I guess more for everybody comes from such varied, I guess, experiences, whether it's with ultimate or with sports. But I think a very good question that a lot of people have, especially for me too, but I do want to ask everybody on the panel, and particularly Kaela, because she has been, involved with ultimate at so many different levels. You're a player, you've been a coach, you played on women's teams, you are the COO of cut camps. With all of this in your ultimate bag, what drove you and why have you chosen to now involve yourself with the AUDL? It seems as though your ultimate career is full of accolades and experiences.
Yeah, I think for me, it seems like the AUDL brings a lot of eyes to ultimate, and that inevitably will bring more opportunities for women and for youth, which is something that I'm really passionate about. Like my business, which is overnight summer camps for high schoolers. I've also run a lot of youth camps. I'm the youth coordinator for the Growlers as well. But kind of the fact that I've coached and played abroad a lot and just seen the reach of the AUDL. There's so much publicity. They crank out so many highlight reels, like people just love it. And I want to be involved in kind of shaping how the sport moves forward. And player development is really important to me. So I really want to make sure that like the players are supported. We're pushing the game, the limits of what the sport can look like, and really just making the players even better and the product even better. It's like if the product is the Frisbee game, right? And like that experience for the fans, that experience for the players. And I just really want to make sure that people fall in love with ultimate just like I did. And I actually think that the AUDL version of Ultimate is more similar to women's club than it is to men's club, just because of the field dimensions and the speed of the athletes. So I think that I kind of have a unique perspective coming in as a female coach that some of the other coaches may not have really looked at the game in that way.
So I feel like what you're telling me, Kaela, is something that, as we prepared for this, is that you just see a lot of opportunity with the AUDL, whether it is for the game itself or, for youth, or to just grow. Do you feel as though there are opportunities within the AUDL? And this is something that I would like to pose to the rest of the panelists as well. Like we talk about opportunity a lot. I feel like that keeps coming up over and over again. Like, what sorts of opportunities do you see for yourselves as women, in involving yourself with the AUDL?
Yeah, I think that when I played in college and then every club team I've ever played on, we've had a very tight relationship with kind of the brother team associated with my team, and the connections there I've seen can be really beneficial for both teams and just the community in general. And so I think any kind of cross-pollination you can get going, it's going to benefit the other side. So if I can establish relationships within the AUDL and be valuable here, then that can kind of cross over into the new budding women's leagues and the youth leagues. So that's one of my main goals.
I mean, Kaela, it's really impressive. There are very few head coaches that are women, particularly in men's sports leagues. So I think it's a fantastic position for you. And I think that the league is really, really lucky to have someone who has such a breadth of knowledge and such a optimistic, I think, outlook and kind of, has a vision for, not just for Ultimate, but for yourself. And I think that that's, something that's a recurring theme amongst a lot of us who are involved in the league. I guess it's also another good question for Dr. Bishop. Meghan, you seem to have a lot of experience with the Knicks and with Boston Marathon. What was it about the AUDL and Ultimate Frisbee that you're like, sure, I'll sign on to do that with all the other things that I do with my life?
Well, I mean, I'm still relatively early in my career and in the phase where I say yes to everything that is asked. So that's something that, I would like to recommend to young listeners. Early in your career, you definitely got to say yes to everything, be available. You're going to learn so much, and there's a lot to learn with every opportunity that you get offered. So I was really excited about it. This was a good opportunity, just like you said, at a new league that's more of a startup and kind of building from the ground up. Last year was the first year that Christina, you organized having team physicians that were official for each team. So I was excited to be part of something that was kind of new and being able to kind of build it the way we wanted. So now we're starting, as Christina mentioned at the beginning, a research database that I'm heading the committee for to kind of collect on injuries so that we can better track what kind of injuries are occurring with our players and keeping players healthy long term. I definitely have a research interest in performing research as well, and I perform a lot of research on female athletes too. So I think it would be cool, which I'm not involved with any of the female leagues, but one day to kind of expand whatever we learn in collecting for the AUDL to kind of look at female athlete injuries in Ultimate as well, just because we know that there are differences in athletic injuries between males and females. So there's a lot of opportunities with starting with the AUDL being a new league, and I was definitely excited to get involved. And it's awesome, Christina, that you're the medical director and you're a female too. So I think that was pretty cool.
I couldn't agree with you more, Meghan, about how, whether you're early in your career, I think particularly for women, especially women who are doing something that, traditionally are not posts or opportunity jobs that have been traditionally men. I think it is super important to say yes and say, it might be out of my wheelhouse or it might be a little bit odd, but I think there's nothing really to lose. You say yes and you just get more experience. And I think that not only do you get more experience, I do think that you as a woman in these spaces, you might not realize it at the moment, but you really do create opportunities for your fellow women which I think is a really important thing. And I think panels like this are great to showcase that. Now, Amanda, same thing for you. You are a mental performance coach, so you work with athletes all the time, I would imagine. And you're also an owner of the Tampa Bay franchise. Can you speak a little bit to the opportunity that you saw? I mean, I think you became involved in the league about a year or two ago, and tell us a little bit about that journey and kind of what you saw as opportunity.
Yeah, so I played Ultimate not on Kaela's level whatsoever, but more City League with Tallahassee Ultimate, which I love everyone involved with Tallahassee Ultimate. But I always loved the sport. I moved down to Sarasota, and then when the franchise moved from Jacksonville to Tampa, I saw an opportunity to work with the franchise, with the Tampa Bay Cannons on the mental side, because it's the mental performance in general and sports psychology is such a niche field that, kind of like Dr. Bishop was talking about, any opportunity, I'm in that phase in my career where like, hey, here's an opportunity, let's go after it, let's go, see what's possible there. And I think that's really good advice that Dr. Bishop gave to like people watching, and even I'm taking it even for myself, for say yes to opportunities, see where it goes, see how it progresses. And it's been such a fun ride where I worked with the team on the mental performance aspect. And then about a year ago, they asked me to join the ownership group, which has been really fun and different on more the learning about the executive side of things, which has been a really interesting change and just cool opportunity.
No, that's great. We're so excited to have you join us, especially amongst the ranks of very few female. There are very few female owners, and so it's really great to have another compatriot on our side. Now, I think that I'd like to pick Alexis's brain about this concept of opportunity. I mean, you are definitely the freshest face out of all of us. It's like you're the one on this panel where it's like you have the world in front of you. You just graduated, you just got your degree, and you're a strength and conditioning coach. Talk to us a little bit about, strength and conditioning opportunities or the lack thereof, maybe there may have been in the past, and kind of what you see with the AUDL.
Yeah, I got my undergraduate degree in exercise science and sport management. I kind of knew that strength and conditioning wasn't really for me during that time when I was interning, but I kind of transitioned. Right now, I'm a soccer trainer at an indoor facility. So, I've kind of been around, the competitive aspect still, myself playing as well. But, being around sports, it's just like super important to, stay motivated and stay strong, throughout, and inspire the youth as well. But, as you said, being kind of the younger one on the panel, there's a lot of opportunities ahead of me. Dr. Bishop was talking about being a yes woman. That's definitely me. I take on any opportunity I can in the organization. I came on originally as a digital marketing and social media intern, and within 2 months, I kind of asked for more to do, which led to operations and marketing under, CJ O'Brien, our owner. He has given me a big curtain opening to, a sports industry, being an owner and kind of learning from that. So I've been really grateful and thankful for being able to see those opportunities and kind of learn more, because in any other, sports industry, the big five, NFL, they don't really give you that chance. But I feel like I'm learning a lot in every aspect, wearing different hats of the departments, basically, and kind of leading our interns towards, greatness for our organization.
No, I really love that as a recurring theme. The concept of building and innovating and learning as you go, but then also being able to make your imprint and kind of make it what you want it to be. And if what we want it to be is a new version of a professional sport that does include women from top to bottom, whether it is Kaela being a head coach, or, you running every single thing in operations, or, Amanda having her hands in, mental performance and and executive leadership of a franchise, and Dr. Bishop, pioneering an entire new research sector for the entire game of Ultimate. I mean, I think these things are super exciting for all of us, and it's refreshing to hear from everybody in the panel that we all kind of share that sentiment about what we're doing together. I guess really quickly, in your respective specialties and in working with the AUDL, Amanda, were there ever any moments where you were like acutely aware of the fact that you were like the only woman around, or acutely aware that you were, female?
Yeah, for me, it was my very, very first season. It was my first home game. And so the guys are in the locker room, and I was like, oh, I just can't walk in there and go talk to them, like, because the coaches were all going in, and they're like, oh, come on. I'm like, is everyone decent? So that was kind of when I was acutely aware of that, like little things. I think we talked like last week a little bit about our experience with that, and when we travel, like making sure I have my own room, because I know in Ultimate it's normal. Like I played on a mixed team back in the day, and it's normal, just everyone kind of loads into a hotel room. But I was like, no, in this case I want my own room. And so just having those boundaries that I didn't really think through before, but now, like, that was kind of one of the more glaring portions when I was like, oh, we are different genders, and dealing with that. I don't know if anyone else had any.
Yeah. So anybody else, whether it's with the AUDL, I mean, you guys have all been involved with sports and athletes in different ways. How is there any point in time where you're just like, oh yeah, I guess I'm a little different than everybody else?
Yeah, I know for me, just because I am currently an athlete at, I would say, a comparable level to what the AUDL is producing, it's interesting being a coach in the scenarios where normally I would be a player, and I'm kind of seeing how the men's team is operated and how the league runs the games and the production and like all the things these athletes get, which I'm like so excited for them. But at the same time, there's just a little bit of loss of like that equal opportunity is not quite there for me yet. Like we're starting to have women's pro leagues. They're just like not quite at the level where the AUDL is currently. So kind of more feeling like as an athlete, I'm missing out on that a little bit, or just behind a couple years from where the AUDL is at. But I say like the way that the players have treated me, the way that my organization, like the Growlers, have treated me has been amazing. I have literally no complaints there, but I have had a couple interactions with other teams or other teams' coaches where specifically one where like the head coach would not make eye contact or direct anything he was saying to me. He would say it to my co-coach. Even if I asked a question, he would answer it to the co-coach, and like that's kind of like the stereotypical thing that, worst case scenario, but just the way that my team and my co-coach handled it turned it into a good experience for me, honestly. Like they completely had my back in those scenarios. So it's kind of like
So how did they handle that? Because I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like we probably all experienced that at some point where you're the one talking and everybody else is talking to the guys around you who are actually saying nothing, And so, when you say that they handled it in a way that you felt really supported, can you talk a little bit about, what they did that made that experience, good for you and positive?
Yeah, just like immediate acknowledgement from everyone that's what was happening. I think that can make you feel really alone if you're experiencing that and you start to second guess, like, oh, am I making this up in my head? Are they not talking to me because like, maybe they don't know that I'm a coach, or maybe they think I'm a trainer and I'm just like standing there, so they shouldn't be talking to me about coach things. Like those types of things run through your head. So having the immediate acknowledgement from my team that's what was happening. And then just like secondly, that they did not think that was okay. And then thirdly, kind of putting that other coach in a tough position of like, I was the only one that would talk to him about coaching things for the rest of the game. Like my co-coach put me in that position. So like kind of forced the interaction. So just, I really enjoyed that, and it turned the whole situation into a good one for me.
I think
What
that's
about
a great
the rest
story.
of you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. I you know, a lot of people are doing kind of diversity initiatives in their workplaces and things like that now. And, you know, it's important, obviously, to recognize if there's a lack of diversity and, you know, female and minority leadership in your company. And then, you know, once you start to actually increase that, you actually have to make the, you know, females and minorities actually feel included, you know. So that's great that your team, you know, did that. You know, just filling a quota isn't going to cut it. You actually have to, you know, put females in leadership positions and have them be part of the conversation and allow them to have a voice. So I think that is great that your team did that, just because, you know, I feel like some places are kind of just going through the process of trying to increase their diversity unless you are actually made part of the conversation and included, it's not going to be able to advance us any further. So I think that the AUDL has done a really good job of that so far, and, you know, it may take some time, but like setting a good example like this of including females in leadership positions is going to pay off in the long run. You know, everybody's been very respectful, I think, so far. All the players, everybody on my team I've never had any issues whatsoever. The only time I realized I was a female was when I couldn't go into the locker room, just like Amanda said. So yeah, it really hasn't been an issue in terms of the AUDL. I think the culture is very good there. The Empire also have a female owner to their team as well, Barbara Stevens. So I think that helps too. In my career, though, so many times I've had, realized I'm the only female in the room. Only 6% of females or orthopedic surgeons are female. So it's really low. Only 6 or 7% of females or of people that cover team positions, like head team positions in the pro leagues, are female. So it's a very low number. You have to try to stand out, but also not stand out too much, which is kind of a fine line to walk as well. But all my experiences in the AUDL have been really great so far, and I'm glad that we can kind of mold our own way.
No, that's great, Megan. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was acutely aware of the fact that there are very few head team physician opportunities, and I feel like those, whether it's a coach or a strength and conditioning coach or a head team physician, what happens, I feel like, in a lot of sports in general, is that once somebody has that leadership position, they're there for a while, right? So there's an entire washout period where people are waiting, right? People are waiting to become coaches. People are waiting to become head team physicians. People are waiting, to lead some portion of a sports team or a franchise. And I think it's great that everybody is involved. And that was one of kind of the things that I really wanted to do. And for the audience tonight, I don't know if you know, but 36% of the head team physicians that I've identified for the league are women. And I think that this is a great position for them to start in. And I think it just speaks to the fact that, the AUDL was kind of like, this is a great idea, Christina, run with it. Find the people that you think, are going to help build out this health and safety infrastructure and really lay the foundation for, this entire initiative for the league going forward. And, I don't know if it's calculating on my part, but I said, great, if you're going to give me some leeway, then this is what we're going to build, right? So I feel like there's even in our conversation in preparation for this, we talked a little bit about locker rooms, and I do feel like the general sentiment has been that the league has been extremely inviting and a comfortable place for women to work. If you could identify ways in which the AUDL could be a better place, an even better place for women to work. I think that, as we grow as a league, there are going to be changes it's just growing pains, right? One of the things that I think a lot about is, as a startup league, in some ways, I know, Meghan, you have a son, but in some ways, a startup league is almost, dovetails nicely with a working mother schedule, right? Or with anybody who has a primary job, because a lot of our meetings take place, at 8 p.m. or so. And I like to joke a lot with my female compatriots in all different walks of life, about how for women, it's like almost the most productive time for us is, the 7:30, 8 p.m. Once the hubbub of the day and the children have kind of, gone to bed and it's quiet. But one of the things I think a lot about is what happens when this league grows and it does become a full-time job, As we look forward to the next 5 years, I don't think any of the four of you would be here if you weren't planners and didn't think about your life and where you would be 5 years from now. As we grow, I'm curious, like, how can the league continue to grow to be a place that creates spaces for women to grow and give them a voice? I think, Alexis, maybe you can start with that. We haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I kind of think about, every day as we work towards like a common goal. As this league grows, I want to be seen as someone that I kind of want to look back, I would say, actually, and be like, I was a part of that change. So, kind of going into it, knowing that us females in these larger leadership roles, created this basically an empire of, ultimate, kind of looking back and be like, okay, they can do it. Like, why not? Right. So you don't really have to look towards those ultimate specific people that know the sport, but kind of grow off of it and kind of dive off of it and know that there's other people of leadership position and power and have that knowledge, to be in those roles and can help expand and bring that outside and like fresh perspective to the sport.
No, that's some great insight, Alexis. I also think you should give a really big shout out to the guys on your team, because it looks like Jonathan, Powell, Dave, and Jesse Johnson are singing your praises. Powell says is if he quit and got run over by a Mack truck, they would be fine. But if you quit, they'd be in really, really big trouble. So I think you should give a big shout out and a smile and a hi.
The guys are awesome on the team. From day one, they've kind of always included me. Just recently, at signing day, a couple of them even came up and gave me a handshake before they came to sign. So there's a lot of respect coming from the guys on the team, and I truly appreciate it. Just being another person on the team, it's honestly really, I'm very grateful for them. I'm not sure if that's like that with other teams, but I'm very lucky to be on the Chicago Union and be around these players.
What about you, Amanda? How do you think that the AUDL, from your perspective as a female owner, can continue to be a place that, supports development and gives you a voice, at the table?
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off of what Alexis said, offering up fresh perspectives. And I think Kaela said it as well, like, she has a different perspective from coaching because she played the women's game, and looking for those people that are going to bring those fresh perspectives and giving them opportunities to, like, hey, this is a startup league. Let's try something. Let's try something different. It doesn't always have to be the same thing. And I think that's where I feel like the league can grow with women in the AUDL. And I think that's a really cool thing. Eventually I'd like to see more mental performance coaches in the league at some point. And I know I've worked talking with Peter from Boston about getting them a mental performance coach as well. So I think there's opportunities there. So I'm always going to talk about mental performance, sorry. Mm-hmm. But I think as a startup league, there's a lot of different roles that haven't been filled yet. And I think that's a really cool opportunity for females to input their voice in there and be seen in leadership roles. And shout out to my Cannons team. They have been awesome since day one. Pete there, Brandon, and then even Andrew Roca, who was our coach before, like, literally first practice was like, hey, listen to her. So that's always been, having those people back me up has been great.
No, that's wonderful, man. It's good. I support building out all our medical staff as well. So if you know a lot and any good female mental performance coaches in the different markets, you certainly can throw them the CMO's way. Kaela, for you, it's interesting. Female coaches have really been a hot topic, I think. And having a female on-field presence has been a really big deal in professional sports these days. I guess if you could speak a little bit to what you see as a way that sports, specifically the AUDL, can ensure that they grow the league, or that as we move to the future of sports, what types of things do you, from your perspective, feel like would help nurture and support a continued pipeline and development for female coaches?
Yeah, I think the coaching role is unique in a way because it is one of the more visual roles. It's like very obvious that you have a female in your organization if she's a coach. And like there are pros and cons to that, but I also think for me coming in, like a lot of the players already knew who I was in the ultimate world just as a player. And so I kind of had respect right off the bat. But that may not be the case for other female coaches coming in. So one way is to do a panel like this, except actually interview us about like our respective disciplines instead of about being a woman in this role. And I think that would really just go a long way in showing that we know what we're talking about and that we're working in this league and that it's it's normalized. And I really feel strongly about that.
Could you expand a little bit on what you just said? Like what do you envision this panel looking like? What do you envision the topics being talked about?
I mean, kind of some of the things we've been talking about, like the mental toughness, sports psychology portion, the, different injuries and ultimate. I'm really interested in those things. So I would love to have a panel interviewing everyone on this call about that type of thing, instead of just like being a woman in that role, like actually what we are knowledgeable about and why we are involved in the AUDL. And I think that will open the door for other women coming in who can base their entrance into the AUDL on like their knowledge and their own discipline, instead of feeling like they're in a space that is, that you are, that there are not a lot of you in the space. It can be more about your knowledge.
I think that's a fabulous idea, Kaela. I love it. I'm actually trying to hold myself back as the moderator from asking you guys about what you do in all of your roles, because I actually do find it fascinating. So I think it's a fascinating idea, and I think it's a great idea, and I think that's something we talk a lot about on actually the AUDL Inclusion Initiative. We talk about, what minority, players, athletes, not just not that they're not there just because they are the color of their skin or where they come from. It's not because, they can, they make a good highlight. It's not just because you're just like, oh, I have to do this because, we're seeking diversity and because it's the en vogue thing. You do it because they're great athletes. You do it because, they know what they're doing. You do it because they excel at what they do. And to highlight that and celebrate it, I think, it always reminds me of this one instance where I think that, there was a point in time where it was just like anything we can do to like highlight, minorities, whether it's women or people of color. And they were just, and, we were just seeing things put out with people catching discs. And we're like, no. These guys know how to play. Like, there are other things out there than them just catching a disc, like on an upline cut, let's show them what they are, which are superstar athletes, and what they're very good at and how they know how to play this game. It's not just, a person with brown skin just caught the disc. That's like not what it's about, So I totally agree with you. I think that what you guys do is fascinating in your respective fields, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk about that one day too, and we'll fill the panel with experts like yourselves. Meghan, I'm saving this last question for you because I do think that it is quite fraught. And I do think that your your experience in having a child, and it's something that I think about a lot. That, you know, what can, not just, I guess, all industries, but specifically the sports industry, what can they do, you know, to create an environment that's welcoming to working mothers? I mean, that is definitely something that we face and struggle all the time. You know, I would say one of my biggest struggles and challenges of working with the AUDL is just that work-life balance.
Christina, I wish I had the answer to that. If I did, I would definitely share it. You know, it's pretty tough. Certainly doing everything by Zoom has helped, but even on a Zoom call, say I have a Zoom call from like 6:30 to 7:30 a.m., you know, I'm multitasking at that time. I'm like getting my son breakfast. I'm getting him awake. Like, you know, like, so even though I'm like calling, I'm not 100% present on a lot of these calls. So my participation level is probably not the same as some other people that don't have those same kind of responsibilities. So, you know, I think women are kind of the ultimate like multitaskers and delegators, and that's kind of just how we've always expected to be. So I think like a number one solution for people is to be a delegator. So get help. You know, have someone come, you know, even if you have to hire an extra nanny or an extra person, if you need for a night, like, you know, get people to help you, have a good support system. It makes, you know, accomplishing things a lot easier. Picking what is like a priority in your life. You know, I used to run like very competitively, even with my career as an orthopedic surgeon. Since having my son, you know, I still run to like stay in shape, but certainly that has taken kind of a back burner. So like really figuring out what is important. You can do a lot of things, but you can't do everything. And then, you know, I think like employers understanding that women have more work-life balance issues than men. So like, you know, in the orthopedic surgery world, that has not yet been addressed. So like, you know, a lot of people don't have maternity leave policies. They have nothing in place whatsoever in a lot of different, it's getting better in certain places, but, you know, we're still very far behind other professions in that, just because we have so few females. So we need people to be able to kind of support and recognize that there are different responsibilities between males and females, and whether or not that, you know, affects how there's compensation or how, you know, people are expected to participate in things. I'm not sure the right answer to that, but it needs to be better recognized, and or else we're going to have burnout issues and things like that. But orthopedics is a great field. Being a woman in medicine is a great field. But like I said, it's tough. There's like a lot of challenges to overcome to be part of it, but it's 100% worth it, with, you know, getting to take care of patients and keep people healthy and, you know, do the things that you love to do. I'm sure you feel the same way, Christina.
Yeah, I do feel the same way, you know, and I do think just having conversations and talking about these things. And I think that making sure that women have a seat at the table, you know, across the board, you know, like we have here on this panel, and just hearing from them hopefully will help move things like slowly, right? So that, I mean, there can't be change if there's no conversation and no understanding. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled that we're having this panel, and the four of you took time out of your very busy days at 8:00 at night on a Wednesday to come talk to all of us about being a woman, you know, in general, in life, in sports, in the AUDL. Now, there are two last questions that I want to put out to the group. Alexis, this one's going to you first, but I would like everyone to chime in. You know, I think we're all familiar with the terminology trailblazer, and I think that certainly women who say yes and take opportunities get that moniker a lot. Alexis, like I said, you're young, you're starting out, you are clearly a trailblazer. Your team clearly feels like you're a trailblazer. What does it mean to you to have that presence, and do you feel like you are one? And how long have you felt that way?
I'll start with that question. No, I definitely don't feel like a trailblazer compared to the women on this panel. I definitely feel like I'm rising to the ranks though, when it comes to like my future career. But you know, I definitely feel like I'm definitely starting something in this league. Like I kind of talked about, that people will be able to, you know, acknowledge and kind of be inspired by. I would say, you know, being 23, a director of operations and marketing, not a lot of people can say they have that experience. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity and continuing to work towards that bigger goal of mine of being a trailblazer, definitely as a female in the sports industry. But I do not consider myself one compared to these wonderful women on this panel.
I don't know, Alexis. I think that Paul would have something else to say about that. What about you, Amanda? What does trailblazing mean to you? How do you feel about it? Do you take ownership over it?
I mean, when you say the word trailblazing, for some reason, the Oregon Trail, the old computer just pops in my head, and I'm like, no, I'm not that. But I feel like in certain respects, yes, like on the mental performance side, but being a female in sports, no. There's a lot of great role models. One of my role models from grad school, Jodie Ambor, she was the sports psychologist for the Miami Hurricanes back in the 80s, which is really cool. So she was one of the first females working with in football, in college football. So I think that's really cool. So I've had that great role model to look up to. And I think in the AUDL, maybe on the mental performance side of Trailblazer, but in the whole field, maybe not so much.
And you, Kaela?
Yeah, I think share the same sentiment of like being in the sports world has been natural for me. I've always done it, multiple sports, not just ultimate. I do think the way that I would think about myself being a trailblazer is just I have a bit of a responsibility to make sure that the next woman that comes in and plays this role or has this position doesn't run into as many hiccups as I do. So just making sure that like when those little things come up, I make sure there's a change made so that the next person has a slightly easier time.
No, that's wonderful. I think that that's the whole concept of paying it forward, you know, and I think that, you know, we women feel a lot of ownership over that, right? And a lot of, you know, it's a blessing and a burden, right? Meghan, trailblazer for sure. How do you feel about it? Do you take ownership over it? How would you know, what advice would you give girls who are blazing trails, wanting to blaze trails?
So I think Kaela said it really well. I think her points are great too. But I think, you know, I definitely owe a lot to my mentors as being trailblazers for me as well. I had a really great female mentor in orthopedics that did professional sports team coverage. And it was really great to see her doing that when I was young, and it influenced me a lot. So, you know, for young women that are interested in some of these professions that previously weren't available for women, I encourage you guys to seek out, you know, a mentor. The reason why I found my mentor was I literally just sent her an email and she actually responded and let me come like work with her for a summer. So just taking that chance and reaching out to someone, you'd be surprised how willing people are to help. So that would be my advice to young women, just to try to find a good mentor, and it can be really helpful long-term in your career.
Amanda, any words of wisdom?
Ooh, words of wisdom. I don't know. So, one thing my dad, it's always stuck with me. My dad would always tell me, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So to go and just go ask the questions and be brave and be competitive and put yourself out there. So that's, if you don't do that, then there's no change.
No, it's wonderful. Yeah. Be unapologetic, you know, go out there. It's true. You know, it can never hurt to ask, right? You don't get anywhere if you don't ask the questions. Kaela, advice?
Yeah, just keep it short and simple and say, if you know what you're talking about, people are going to end up listening to you.
Confidence, right? And I think that takes us full circle back to Alexis, because it's the first thing she talked about tonight. And I think that I think that I can feel it. I hope our audience can feel it. But I do think that the one thing that this panel exudes is confidence. And I do think that it's a critical part of navigating life, navigating sports or any industry as a woman. And so, Alexis, talk a little bit about confidence. What you were talking about before, we can circle it back.
Yeah. Just don't be afraid to speak up, because you never know what other people may be thinking or kind of have the same idea. You just have to be confident with what you're saying. A good kind of Ted Lasso quote is be curious, like not judgmental. So if you're curious about something, just ask the questions. I know coming into Ultimate, I knew nothing. My first game was our home opener. So there's a lot of wheels spinning in my head, and trying to understand the sport as well, which it's very nice that I have a good relationship with soccer, because the two go together. So kind of putting the pieces together. But, when you walk in the room, like Kaela said, have that confidence, stand tall, walk the walk, talk the talk, and people will respect you from that point forward.
Great. I think that's a great way to conclude our panel. Thank you, everybody out there who came to listen to these four fabulous women talk about their experiences in their professions in sports, their blazing trails and breaking boundaries. We hope that you enjoyed the programming, and feel free to get to know us even further and follow us and our teams. Good night, everyone. Thanks, ladies.